Okay, this is Faith at Faith and Books, and I'm about to do a book tour or a bookshelf tour of the third shelf from the top of my big wall of books. So that was ancients and a little bit of medieval, and then we've got Renaissance, we've got Dante, Shakespeare, and then a couple of other things. I realize I am missing Othello and Macbeth. I don't know where they are. And I also forgot to mention this book right here. When I was going through my books, I just missed it. And then I also missed, which one? Oh yeah, when I was doing the medieval, the Piers the Plowman. Somehow I missed that one too. But anyway, this is the third bookshelf tour. And it just so happens that I just finished this series by Anthony Trollope, the Palliser series. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the tour just on the shelf here, and then I'm going to give a review of the Duke's Children and an overall review of the Palliser series by Anthony Trollope. And on this shelf, the next three shelves are just a mess chronologically. They're just, at one point they were sort of in chronological order, but they really aren't anymore. So I have to really reorganize these three shelves. So sorry about the shadow there. Anyway, so starting off, we have a Barnes & Noble copy of Don Quixote. Now, this is the one that I was reading that I sadly did not finish in, I only got that far, in 2022. That was a great defeat. But I have read Don Quixote before, and I have another copy in my dining room where I keep all the books I inherited from my grandparents and my parents. And that's the one that I read. It's translated by Walter Starkey. I really enjoyed it a lot. So, I don't know. Do I need two copies of Don Quixote? I don't know. Now, this is also a Barnes & Noble edition, and I used to go to Barnes & Noble a lot because we had one that was convenient. Now the one we have is in a shopping mall. You have to park in a parking garage and walk this long way. I hate shopping malls. But there used to be a freestanding one, and we used to go there a lot. And so when they had these sales, you know, buy one, get half off, or buy two and get half off, of their books, their editions, I would do that sometimes. But I just saw that another Barnes & Noble is coming, another freestanding one, very close to where it was before. So I'm really excited about that. I think it's opening in February. So yeah, so that's exciting. But anyway, what I did was I bought Gulliver's Travels. And here's the thing. I don't really like Jonathan Swift. So I probably just bought it because I felt guilty about not liking Jonathan Swift and felt like I should give him another try. I remember having to read A Modest Proposal in high school, and I was way too young for it and thought it was disgusting. Didn't find it humorous at all. And I know Gulliver's Travels from, like, you know, old movies or cartoons, but the actual book is a bit different, and it's very silly, and I don't really understand a lot of the commentary that he's making, what he's satirizing. So it was never a favorite. I don't know, should I keep it because it's a classic and maybe one day I'll come around to it, or what? I don't know. Okay, the next one is Democracy in America by Alex de Tocqueville. And both my husband and my oldest daughter love him. They have read chunks of this. I have not. I would like to read it. I was even thinking it's such a thick book that it might be a good, like, 2024 read along with people if anyone's interested. I'm not sure. He's supposed to be really interesting and an entertaining read. So they really love him. So anyway, it's very big, very thick. It's intimidating. This is The Wealth of Nations. I do not like this edition at all. It's thick and chunky. The print is really tiny. I'm never going to read it, but my husband was a economics major, and he felt that we needed The Wealth of Nations on our shelf. So I'm never going to read that one, though. I know I'll never understand it. And then we have a book, What Jane Austen Ate and Charles Dickens Knew, and this is pretty good. I've read other things that are more informative, and I don't know if it's 100% accurate anyway, but it's a fun read. I don't know if I feel like keeping it or not, though, so I don't know, that's questionable. This I think I will give away. A long time ago I studied philosophy and read some John Stuart Mill. But this is an old copy. This might have been my husband's actually. And it's kind of yellowed and the print is little, and I doubt very much that I'm ever going to try to read John Stuart Mill again in my life. So I don't know about that. Okay, here's Ivanhoe. I don't really like this edition of Ivanhoe. I would like to get a nicer one. The print, again, is small and it's crammed. It's very, it's not a comfortable reading experience, I didn't think. But I love Ivanhoe and I love Sir Walter Scott, and I would like to read all the Waverley novels, and he wrote a lot. But this is all I have right now of what he's written. I've only read Waverley itself and Ivanhoe. I haven't read the other ones, which I would really like to do because I really like him. And then this next one is Rebecca and Rowena by Thackeray. Now, I can never get into, what's the one that he wrote? Vanity Fair. I just don't like Becky Sharp. But this is a scream. It's him basically making fun of Ivanhoe. And he wrote this short novella where he focuses on Rebecca and Rowena. And I read it years ago, and it was a scream. So I think I'll keep that because I might want to read it again. And then I get into my Anthony Trollope, which I'm trying to collect. This first one is The Way We Live Now. I bought this just a couple of years ago. I tried to read it. It was a little too cynical and political, and we were in the midst of this great political upheaval, and I didn't want anything political, so I only made it about a third of the way through, and then I DNF'd it. I know some people consider it one of his greatest works. Maybe I'll try it again. All right, then this is The Three Clerks. This is one of the few books that I have that was my mom's, and she loved Anthony Trollope. She read everything by him more than once. I think she had a number of his books, but I think she also got a lot out of the library. So this is Anthony Trollope, and I would like to read this, but I do not like the print. I'm so picky about print. I do not like the print. And so I might keep this because it was my mom's. I put it back. But I might read it on the Kindle maybe later this year or something. I do want to read some more Anthony Trollope. I'm going to take a little break because I've been doing a lot of Anthony Trollope the last 3 or 4 years. And I might take a little break for now, but maybe in the later half of the year I'll read more Anthony Trollope. Then we have the Palliser series, and I will talk about all this later. So let's skip over that for now. And then, unfortunately, I cannot find my copy of The Warden. Maybe I'll find it while I'm doing this book shelf tour. So I just seem to have Barchester Towers, and I have Dr. Thorne, and then The Last Chronicle of Barset. I've read the whole series, but a couple of them I listened to on audio, and maybe one I got out of the library, so I don't have the complete set. And I would really like to have the complete set, and I really like the Oxford University set, Oxford World Classics, that's what it is, Oxford World. I really like their editions the best, so I would like to have everything in their publication. I think that would look nice. That would be really nice. And then after that, we have some George Eliot. We have Felix Holt. This was also my mother's. I read this in January when my grandson Felix was born, last January. He's just a year old. But I read it on the Kindle. I did not read it in this edition because it's kind of faded and, the pages are a little bit brittle. Greatly enjoyed it. Silas Marner, I had an old copy that fell apart. I read this in high school, and then I loved it so much. I read it several times in my life. I read it out loud to my teens when we were homeschooling. I'm pretty sure at some point I read the short stories, but I don't remember them. But this is a fairly new. See this? I probably got this at the same time I got these or something. Yeah, but I love Silas Marner. And then this is Adam Bede, and this is the copy that way back in law school, which was 36 years ago or something like that. Somebody gave this to me, said, "Oh, I just read this book. It's so great. Yeah, you should read it." And then she just gave it to me, and I read it. So that's Adam Bede. But I've read, like right now I'm reading Middlemarch, but I'm reading it on the Kindle, and I have a library copy, but I would like to own Middlemarch. I'd like to own George Eliot's books because I love George Eliot. All right, and then here's my little bit of Dickens, David Copperfield, which I've read several times. I've never read Oliver Twist. I'm just afraid it's going to be too anti-Semitic with fake. But also this is a Puffin classic, so I think I might DNF this. I've never read it. Why do I need a children's abridged version? So what did I say? Did I say unhaul or DNF? I meant unhaul. I might get rid of that one. Then this is a nice, someone gave this to me when I was younger. This is a nice edition of A Christmas Carol, and it's got these lovely illustrations by Arthur Rackham. So that's a very nice edition that I got as a gift, you know, as a child. And then Bleak House. I bought Bleak House after the BBC production of it, which I watched and loved. And so then I went out and I bought this, and it sat on my shelf for, I don't know, like 15 years. And I finally read it a couple of years ago for Victober. It was the only thing I did for Victober was read Bleak House. But I'm so glad I finally conquered that one. I'm trying to read more Dickens. And then we have, this is a nice copy of Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre is a book I love to hate, but I've read it many times, so there's that. And then this is Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth. Oh, I remember reading this out loud to my kids. I don't know if I like these Signet classics. I don't think I do. They're too cramped. And then The Count of Monte Cristo, and I also read this out loud to my kids too. And is this also a Barnes & Noble? Yeah, so it's another Barnes & Noble classic. So I really enjoyed that. I read that, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago? No, longer than that. Many years ago. Anyway, so that is a tour of the third shelf, and the second half of this is going to be me talking about the Palliser series. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is the second half of the book tour for this week, the bookshelf tour for this week. I'm kind of combining a little bit of reading that I did this past week with the shelf tour because I don't have quite enough time this weekend to do two separate videos. So the first thing I want to do is say hi to my sister Terry, because it turns out Terry watches these videos. So thank you, Terry. And Terry suggested that what I should do, because eventually I'm going to get into a lot of children's books, that what she thought I should do, and I think I'm going to do it, is organize by topic, like ancients, and have the adult stuff all in one place, and then get a divider, and then have the children's stuff, the books that relate to the ancients next to it, and just do it that way. And I think that might be a good way to organize it. I have to say that the next three shelves I'm really confused about how to organize. For instance, I realized in the video, the first half of this video, where I showed the shelf where I had the Trollopes, I don't have any Jane Austen. I have a couple of complete sets of Jane Austen's novels, but the newer set is up in my bookcase up in my bedroom, and then the antique set is in the dining room where I keep all the antique books. So, you know, I just am not going to make everything, you know, as exact as maybe would be preferable, but that's just the way I've been doing it. That part seems to work. It's just it gets a jumble in here, and I can never find things. That's my frustration. So I like the idea of topic and then in order. Right now I'm really doing it in chronological order, but when I get into these shelves, it's a lot of Victorian literature, and so then you can't really do it chronologically, so then I should do it by author's name. I don't know, I need help. I'm not an organized person. It does not come to me naturally. I have to work very hard at it in order for it to make sense to me. But anyway, let me do a quick review of The Duke's Children, which is the last book in the Palliser series. I won't give any spoilers. This one really focuses on Plantagenet Palliser, who is somebody you meet in the first book too, and then he's somehow involved in every book in the series, except sometimes to a much lesser extent. But this one really focuses on him, and for the first time we really meet his children. We know he had children, but they're not really focused on in the previous books. But he has 3 children. The oldest is called Silverbridge because that's the whatever he inherited. That's his title. And then there's Mary, the only girl, and then Gerald is the youngest. And this is really about Mary and Silverbridge's trying to find a spouse, a proper spouse that the Duke will approve of. So I just love the character of Plantagenet Palliser. I think he's just a wonderful, wonderful creation of Trollope's, and this endeared him to me further. I have to say that one character, Frank Tregear, I never warmed up to, and there's another character, Mabel Grex, that I started out liking, and then by the end I was sicker. But anyway, it was a good ending to the whole series, but it was very different from the Barchester series, where the last one, the last Chronicle of Barset, ties up everything, and it's just a wonderful, just a brilliant tying up of the whole Barchester series. I think the Chronicles of Barset, or the Barset Chronicles or whatever, I like, if I was going to rate them, they would be number 1 in my heart, that series. But this would come second. But it's still very, very good, and I'm so glad that I read it. I started reading it back in 2021. In the fall, I read Can You Forgive Her? This is a Dover Thrift edition, and I really enjoyed reading. It's nice and floppy. I love the big print. I don't know why, but the feel of a book is so important to me. And it really affects my enjoyment. And look, wonderful illustrations in it. So I really enjoyed this Dover Thrift edition, but this is the only one that they have. So I couldn't continue with it. I would have loved to have a whole set in this edition, the Dover Thrift. Anyway, some people have trouble getting into this. I did not. There's a woman in here, Alice Vavasor, who can be quite annoying because she overthinks everything, and she has really good judgment when it comes to other people's lives and terrible judgment when it comes to her own, and she can be kind of irritating. But I found her more interesting than irritating. So I thoroughly enjoyed this book, Can You Forgive Her? And this is when we first meet Plantagenet and his wife, Lady Glencora. And then the next book I actually listened to on LibriVox, and this was Phineas Finn. I know I read it or listened to it in October of 2021 because my grandson, Phineas, was born on October 25th, and I knew they were going to name him Phineas, so I wanted to read this book during that month. I did not actually physically read the book. I listened to it on LibriVox, but I wanted a copy of it, so I just bought this used copy from Thrift Books. I don't really, tiny print. It's kind of too condensed. It's just a little bit harder to read, so it's not my favorite. And I haven't actually read it physically. Then I discovered that Thrift Books sold these Oxford World's Classics, and Sean Stanfast did a video on this some time ago where he talked about how this has become his favorite over Penguin, and I thoroughly agreed with that video of his. I wish I could link to it. I'd have to go look for it or whatever. So I don't know. Sorry, Sean. But I really enjoyed these editions, and the Eustace Time, I gave that 5 stars. I just thought it was, there's a character in here you love to hate. There's something that has you rooting for her, even though she's awful. So anyway, so this was a good one too. I really enjoyed that one. And then Phineas Redux. I listened to this and read it somewhat. And this one, the print is different. It's a little bit smaller. This is an older version. So, but anyway, this one I found This was the one that I struggled with. The first half of it is quite depressing. All these characters that you've met before are all having a terrible time now, and it really seems to drag. And then right in the middle of it, it suddenly becomes a murder mystery, and you can't put it down. It's a page turner. So it's worth it getting through the first half to get to the second half. But that was kind of maybe 4 stars instead of 5 stars. And then the Prime Minister. Oh, I love this one. And this is a really nice addition too. I love this one because a Plantagenet finally becomes Prime Minister, and it's what happens to him. And it's got a very. I'm still kind of recovering from this one horrible marriage that happens. That was really traumatizing. One of the characters, there's several characters, and one of them makes a horrendous marriage. And you really feel for it, how dreadful it is, and just really traumatizing. Anyway, but this was an excellent read. I really enjoyed that. And then I wound up with The Duke's Children. So now, I listened to this on an Audible audio. It was Simon Vance was the narrator, and he did a pretty good job. He was not good at an American accent, so I found that abrasive, kind of listening to those characters. He did one okay, and then the other 2 were awful. But I mostly listened, but every once in a while when I couldn't listen but I had the book with me, I would just read the next chapter. And so I was doing that off and on, more listening than reading. And then the last 2 chapters I decided to listen and read, because I keep hearing about it. I think Linda Martin told me about that's immersion reason. So I decided to try that because I was winding up with the book. And it was different. The book, the audio rather, had been edited. And I was very, very upset, and I complained about it online to people. But then I noticed this. It says the complete text. So I wonder if there isn't 2 different versions of this. That when one publication is slightly edited, and that's the one that Simon Vance was reading. Because I felt really gypped, because it said if you look at the audio by Simon Vance, it says unabridged. So I was like, wow, they lied. But maybe they didn't. Maybe there's 2 different versions. And this one, they stuck in the parts that got deleted in an earlier edition that was perceived as being, the official publication of the novel, I guess. I don't know. Probably if I read the intro here, I would find out about it. But just the fact that this is the only one where they felt the need to say the complete text leads me to think that way. So I apologize to Audible for getting so angry at them for abridging a book when maybe they didn't technically abridge it. So, all right, well, that's it from me. This is long enough. This is going to be a really long video. I'm sorry. I'm going to try and make them shorter in future. I hope you are doing well, and I'll be right with you, and happy reading. Bye-bye.